interpersonal attraction and close relationships. So let's go ahead and get started. Among the Padang in the Thai mountains, women elongate their necks by several inches by inserting a number of brass rings around their necks as they grow up. For the longest time, they thought what they were doing was stretching their necks. They were stretching their vertebral column. But then they took X-rays, and this is what they discovered: that instead of making their necks, elongating their necks, what they were doing were depressing not only their clavicles, this is their clavicle right there, but also depressing their rib cages, the tops of their rib cages. And that's how they did it. So they're not really stretching anything. They're just making it look straight and longer. Among the Mursi in Ethiopia, women stretch their lower lips by inserting progressively larger ceramic discs in a hole that has been cut through the lip. And as you can see, it makes them exceedingly attractive, just like the long necks. Mentawai, women from Indonesia file their teeth into sharp points so they have smiles not that different from a shark's smiles. And there you go. Ainu women of northern Japan often tattoo their faces in what looks like a mustache around their lips. Western women darken their eyelashes with mascara, trim their eyebrows, and paint their lips with lipstick. This is me with one of my former students from Ashford University. As you can see, she has a lot of makeup on her, around her eyes. And she also put these interesting piercing. She has a piercing in her cheek to pull her cheeks in, as curious as that is. So a lot of times she got dressed up like this every day, and then every once in a while we would see her without her cheek piercing and without any eye makeup on. She looked a lot different, but the reality was, of course, that that's what she thought was attractive. Strangely enough, she claimed that she was going to be my fourth wife as soon as I divorced my third wife, but of course that never happened. Of course, we weren't really romantic. She was just teasing me. I tease very easily. What kinds of faces are thought to be attractive? There seems to be a striking agreement around the world. Skin that looks free of blemishes, blotches, sores, and rashes is viewed as more attractive than skin that does not, and that's according to Ford and Beach. They first discovered this in 1951, and then it was confirmed in 1986 by Montague. People care so much about their skin because people tend to be attracted to healthy mates who would likely produce healthy offspring that would survive. People usually don't think about selecting healthy mates, but their unconscious preferences for traits that are associated with health have been guided by natural selection. Responding to the apparent health of the skin could thus be a useful heuristic for sizing up the health of one's potential mate in the ancestral environment. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for healthy skin. A second characteristic that appears to be universally viewed as attractive is bilateral symmetry. We are most attracted to people whose left sides of their faces and bodies look identical to their right sides. Bilateral symmetry is an indicator of developmental stability. Given ideal growing conditions, an organism's right and left sides will develop identically. And this is Paris Hilton, I think. Anyway, there's her original, what she looked like originally. There's her left symmetry. There's her right symmetry. Brad Pitt, of course. There's the original Brad. Then the left and the right. We put his face together. There is evidence that people prefer symmetrical faces more than asymmetrical ones, and it has been found in all cultures studied. The preference for symmetry is even stronger in hunting-gathering populations, such as the Hadza of Tanzania. A third characteristic of attractive faces is that they tend to be average. Facial features that are close to average in size and in configuration are perceived as most attractive. And I can't remember what these pictures were. Why? Okay. Men tend to prefer youthful features in women, a characteristic called neoteny. They're looking for baby faces. Men are looking for baby faces. Women prefer some masculine features in men, like hair buns. These are our famous men with hair buns. That's one of the Hemsworth. That's Orlando Bloom. I don't know him. That's Leonardo DiCaprio. That's Jake Gyllenhaal. And I don't know these two guys. I'm not sure who they are. People with average size features are less likely to have genetic abnormalities than people with deviant features. Humans can quickly process something that resembles a prototype, and quick processing is associated with good feelings and feelings of attraction. This is a male from Uzbekistan, African American. This is a white American, somebody from China, somebody from Italy, Hungary, the Philippines, and the Czech Republic. What we had before. Well, these are the women. This is a woman from India, Japan, African American, Samoan, Peruvian, Swedish, Ethiopian, and Uzbek. When researchers started mixing the facial features of different racial groups, they discovered that people found that the results more attractive than the pure racial groups. The opposite sex found the faces of Eurasian and biracial faces most attractive of all. Eurasian is somebody from Europe and Asia, and that's why they call them Eurasian. This is Halle Berry, of course. Halle Berry's mother was Italian, and her father was African American. I don't know who this is. I think she's Eurasian, though, if I'm not mistaken. And there's two males, Shamar Moore and Keanu Reeves. Shamar Moore, his mother was white and his father was African American. And Keanu Reeves, his mother was English and his father was Hawaiian, Chinese, English, and Portuguese. So there you go. It is not certain why multiracial faces are perceived as attractive. One account is that people should be attracted by genetic diversity as a marker of healthy genes. Multiracial represents the best average of all the faces the individual has encountered in their lives. The attractiveness of average features does not seem to generalize well to perceptions of bodies. It does not seem to be true that people are most attracted to those of average weight, height, muscle mass, and breast and hips. The kinds of bodies that tend to be seen as most attractive are often those that depart considerably from the average. This is a perfect male body according to women. This is a perfect male body according to men. As you can see, the perfect male body according to men is a little bit heavier than the woman's preferences. This tends to be the perfect male body, as far as women are concerned, tends to look like a track person rather than a bodybuilder or football player or basketball player. Well, I guess I could be a basketball player depending on the height. Anyway, has to do with the ability to run down game. So a male that looks like he's a runner is considered to be attractive by females. By the males, they think that women want stronger men. In West Africa, the term fat is often viewed as complimentary, indicating strength and beauty, and this is according to Cassidy in 1991. If you've ever seen the television show Abishola, Bob Hart's Abishola, Abishola is Nigerian, and she is pursued by a man in Milwaukee, I think. Maybe it's Cleveland. Anyway, yeah, it's Cleveland. She's Nigerian, and she's just a little bit heavier than what you normally see on television. But then again, she's African. So as far as the Africans are concerned, strength and beauty. Large means strength and beauty. Within the United States, African Americans have heavier ideal body weights than European Americans and feel less social pressure toward thinness. And this is a picture of a group of African American females, and as you can see, they are a little bit larger than the ideal of a white person. A little bit bigger. Another aspect of interpersonal attraction is the propinquity effect. People are more likely to become friends with people with whom they frequently interact. So that's the most important thing, is being around somebody. The more you're around them, the more likely that you will become friends or maybe romantic partners. Researchers looked at friendship patterns that developed in a police academy. The simple fact of who stood next to whom was more important in influencing police recruits' selection of friends than their personalities, backgrounds, and religious beliefs. So the most important thing was being close to somebody. One reason that the propinquity effect works is because of a phenomenon known as the mere exposure effect. The more we are exposed to a stimulus, the more we are attracted to it. This has been shown to be true for attraction to other people, foreign words, music, and a variety of inanimate stimuli. The mere exposure effect appears to be a cultural universal. Japanese and Americans appear to be equally likely to come to like those people with whom they interact most frequently. And this is according to Heine and Renshaw in 2002. Of course, Heine is the author of your textbook. People tend to be attracted to those who are most like themselves, and this is known as similarity attraction effect. Much research has shown that people are more likely to view someone as attractive, either as a potential friend or romantic partner, if both are similar in their attitudes. Economic background, personality, religion, social background, and activities are similar. And this is one of the reasons why people who attend the same church are very likely to find each other attractive. Research that sought to determine whether North Americans or Japanese liked similar or dissimilar strangers showed that North Americans had a stronger attraction to similar strangers than Japanese. In some studies, Japanese show a similarity attraction effect as well, but it is consistently weaker than the North American effect. One of the reasons this may be is because if you remember, people from Japan, 98% of the people in Japan are Japanese. So you really don't come in contact with people that are different. Researchers have discovered that the most frequent topic of conversation is gossip about other people. Studies that track people's happiness over time find that their happiest times are when they are with others. People's most emotionally wrenching experiences involve the breakup of relationships and the death of loved ones. Communal sharing, the members of a group emphasize their common identity rather than consider their idiosyncrasies. In communal sharing, every person is treated the same. Each has the identical rights and privileges as every other member of the group. The ideal in communal sharing is equality among all the members of the group. And this is, if you've ever played on a sports team, no matter how diversified your sports team was, you always felt close to the people on your team. This was true when I was in the service. I played softball and football and soccer, and the people on the teams were, the diversity was extremely. Well, it was very diversified situation, but you always felt really close to the people on your team. Um, when I was playing softball another reservation, I always felt really close to the people I was playing ball with, even though they may not have cared about me very much. But I always felt really close to them because that's the way it is. You just feel closer to the people on your team. Authority ranking involves the inequality of relationships that people share. Within authority ranking relationships, people are linearly ordered along a hierarchical social dimension. People with higher ranking have prestige and privileges that those with lower ranking do not. Subordinates are often entitled to receive protection and care from those above. The lower ranked members earn less money, are allowed fewer privileges, and are obliged to follow the orders of those above them. Asymmetry underlies all authority ranked relationships. Somebody's in charge and somebody else is subordinate. This is in Colombia. As you can see, she's written paz on her hands, which means peace. Another basic relational structure is equality matching, based on the idea of balance and reciprocity. People keep track of what is exchanged in equivalent terms. You did me a favor, now I need to do you a favor. So I will do you a favor if the favor that I did was a bigger deal than what you did for me. Now you owe me a little bit of a favor. I mean, that's the way it is. We're looking for equality matching. While equality matching is probably the least familiar relational structure to Westerners, it is quite common in many cultures around the world. For example, exchanging Christmas cards. So this is from the United States. We exchange Christmas cards, and somebody sends you one, you have to send them one. Taking turns, exchanging dinner invitations, and carpooling. All of these are equality matching. Market pricing is another type of relational structure. All features of benefits that are exchanged can be reduced to a single underlying dimension, usually money. People expect to ultimately receive something equivalent to what they are given. People normally feel some degree of freedom to move openly between relationships, and this is known as relational mobility. Some people have high relational mobility. They feel they aren't bound by old relationships and are able to start new ones at will. Other people feel more restricted in their relationships. They have low relational mobility. Their commitments and obligations to their old relationships are so great that they are controlled by them and they don't feel the freedom to form new relationships. They view relationships as stable and lifelong that provide both benefits and costs in order to maintain them. And we've run into this. We live now in a small town in Iowa. Most of the people who live here, it's a farming community, and most of the people that live here have lived here all their lives. And because of that, people that, let's see, how can I explain this? If you're a friend with a select person, if you make friends with somebody, then potentially you can't make friends with people that are their enemies, even though you don't have anything to do with the whatever the feud is all about. It gets really interesting. We had a neighbor, a real nice lady. We had a neighbor, and sometimes we would go down and help her if she needed help. Well, because we helped her from time to time, all of a sudden we couldn't interact with a select group of people in town because she had divorced this guy, and he had run off with another woman. And because of that, that was considered to be um, the basis of friendships and feuds. So because we interacted with this lady, it was thought that we couldn't befriend a select individual like her, like the ex-husband's relatives. They all didn't like us, uh, don't like us because we used to be friends with Pat, and Pat, of course, is the lady. So the assumption is that since we like Pat, we don't like them, just because I don't know, it just seems so silly. And of course, we're military. We moved around a lot. We don't have anything to do with the divorce. And as far as we're concerned, one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other. But as far as the town is concerned, we're Pat's friends. Relationships in low relational mobility situations are not always positive. Some people really don't get along with each other. If it is not an option to decide that they will not engage with one another, they will continue to have a relationship, though it might be fraught with negative feelings. And you may have this feeling about in-laws. Strangely enough, I seem to get along with just about everybody, but I never have been able to get along with any of my in-laws. It's just so weird. I can't get along with my mother. Well, all of my in-laws have passed away now, but all the in-laws that I've ever had, for some reason they didn't like me. I'm not exactly sure how that worked out, but I always had these negative situations going on. The average American adult reports having a network of 20.76 friends, or 21 people. So Americans have a network of 21 friends. The average adult in Hong Kong has a network of 13.23 friends, or 13 friends. The average German adult has a network of 12.75 friends, or 13 friends. So Germans don't tend to have networks as large as Americans. Americans, 21 people, and Germans only 13 people, which may be one of the reasons why when we were in Germany we had such a difficult time dealing with the Germans, because they were all friendshipped up and they certainly didn't need another person in their lives. A common reaction heard among many international people after their first encounters with Americans is how friendly they seem. Compared with people from other cultures, Americans have a rather casual attitude toward forming friends. Why? Well, we have lots and lots of friends, and they tend to have smaller groups of friends. So we always seem so friendly, as if we're looking for another friend. Um, and it's possible that that's really what's happening, because we haven't hit our 21 limit yet, and they've already hit their 21 limit, or their 12 or 13 limit. In collectivistic contexts, an important aspect of friendship is to provide each other with advice, and this advice is frequently offered regardless of whether one's friend wants to receive it. Unsolicited advice is common in a variety of collectivistic cultures. Turkey and Colombia, for example. It seems to be especially prevalent in Russia. Unsolicited advice. According to BBC journalist James Rogers, you can't really say mind your own business in Russian. You can translate the phrase literally, but the concept is not well understood. So they'll just tell you what they think. A study by Chintsova, Dutton, and Vaughn, looking in 2012, looking at unsolicited advice among Americans and Russians, found that Russians were twice as likely to have given unsolicited advice. The amount of advice given by Americans was more likely to be contingent on whether it was requested. The amount of advice given by Russians was unaffected by whether or not it was requested. Russians will just tell you what they think. In Russia, a big part of friendship seems to be to let your friends know how you think they should be leading their lives differently. When Ghanaians and Americans were asked whether having a lot of friends was good, Ghanaians said that it was foolish. Friendship to Ghanaians involves obligations, both financial and social. Thus, too many friends could make you a pauper with no control over your life. Research conducted with, let's get rid of that. Research conducted with Westerners has shown that physically attractive people have a number of more positive life outcomes than those that are less physically attractive. And these outcomes extend across a broad array of domains in ways that may seem patently unfair. And of course, this is the same person. This is her as Ugly Betty, and this is her as somebody, America, I think is her first name. But as you can see, she's dolled up in one picture, and she's not dolled up in the other. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happened here. Essays that are believed to have been written by an attractive author are evaluated more positively than ones believed to have been written by a less attractive author. And this is from a study by Landy and Segal in 1974. And here's the same thing. There's her not dolled up, and here's her dolled up. Attractive politicians get more votes than unattractive ones, and this is from a study by Efrain and Patterson in 1974. So this is, a lot of times, this is what happens. The Republicans will come up with a very attractive candidate, so the Democrats try to match them in attractiveness. If you find Donald Trump an attractive person and Hillary Clinton ugly, then that wouldn't agree with this statement, because Hillary Clinton won that, or she had more popular votes than Donald Trump by about 3 million. Attractive children are rated as smarter and better behaved than their teachers. This is according to Clifford and Bolster in 1973. Attractive MBA grads earn more money than less attractive MBA grads, and this is according to Fries et al. In 1991. Attractive criminals get lighter sentences than less attractive criminals, and this is according to Stewart in 1980. From an early age, we learn that attractive people have more desirable characteristics than unattractive ones, such as when we learn of Cinderella's kindness and beauty in contrast to her evil and ugly stepsisters. And of course, this is a picture of them tearing her dress for the ball. There you go, the ugly and mean stepsisters. And pretty little Cinderella. Oh. Some people refer to this as the tyranny of the beautiful, and it has been explained by our ability to discern beauty almost immediately after meeting someone. We will often assume that they have other positive features as well, and this is known as the halo effect. This is Audie Murphy, and this is Jeremy Meeks. And as you can see, well, anyway, I will talk about Mr. Meeks in just a second. Jeremy Meeks and Audie Murphy, I guess I'll talk about him right now. Jeremy Meeks was a criminal, and he was in jail. They put his picture on a website. They put all the criminals' pictures on this website. And this is the picture that they put on the website. Women started calling up and saying, hey, I'll take care of him. Here, give him to my custody, and I'll take care of him. It was just the oddest thing in the world. Mr. Meeks was given parole early because everybody was so gaga over him. He had a job, and that job was to become an international model because he was so attractive. And you can if you can either say he's attractive or unattractive, it really doesn't matter. This is Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy was a short little fella, but he was a soldier during World War II, and his bravery earned him not only the Congressional Medal of Honor, but several Silver Stars and Bronze Stars for bravery. He was the most decorated soldier of World War II. Does it have to do with his baby face? Probably not, but he did win the Congressional Medal of Honor. This is Jeremy Meeks in all of his glory in an international. He's still a model, by the way. So he has parlayed this picture, this pretty face, into a modeling career that is still going strong. This was about 10 years ago when his face was first published. This is Jonathan Cahill of the United Kingdom. They were looking for him. He was at large, and they published his picture. This is the picture that they published. Women went crazy over him, and they finally found him. And he was given parole too, not because he was so pretty, but they thought that it probably had something to do with the fact that women found him so strikingly handsome. Jonathan Cahill. In his case, the fact that he was so attractive got him caught a little bit faster than he probably would have if he had been an unattractive person. And he got the same comments that Jeremy Meeks got. Here, you can put him in jail in my basement and I'll take care of him. Those kinds of things. And they just flooded in. The comments just flooded in. You can look this one up if you like. And Jeremy Meeks, you can look him up as well if you like. Audie Murphy, of course, was a hero of World War II, and he died in a plane crash back in the 70s, I think. Anyway, he became an actor because he had such an attractive face, but he was a cold-blooded killer, a real one. Hero. People from Ghana in the United States were asked whether they were happy with their lives. Attractive Americans were more satisfied with their lives than unattractive ones. Attractive Ghanaians were less satisfied with their lives than unattractive Ghanaians. Beauty is a commodity in the United States, but it is not a commodity in Ghana. Oishi and colleagues in 2009 studied American college students, comparing those who had lived in one place and those who had moved multiple times. Now, this is really important to me because we were military, and about every 2 or 3 years, we moved from one place to another. Mike, let's see, how did this work? Okay, we were in Lubbock, Texas when my daughter started kindergarten in the first grade, and then my son started kindergarten, and then we moved to Germany. We were in Germany for 3 years, where they both went to school. Then we moved to Plattsmouth, Nebraska, where they both went to school. Then we moved out to California for a year. And then we moved back to Plattsmouth. So we moved them several times while they were in school. It wasn't easy for them, but they were frequent movers, and they got to know a lot of different things. When you live in Germany, you get to travel all over Europe, which is kind of nice. They went to England and Italy and Switzerland, Salzburg, Austria. The movers had more conditional loyalty. They had more Facebook friends on campus. They recognized their personality traits as part of their identity. They preferred chain stores. This is people that moved a lot, unlike military kids. Cities that tend to have a great deal of mobility, San Diego, Los Angeles, Atlanta, have more fair weather sports fans, higher crime rates with less pro-community action, more large national chain stores. This itinerant lifestyle may make the United States culture different. In many Latin American cultures, people place an emphasis on maintaining harmonious relationships and on making expressive displays of graciousness, hospitality, and personal harmony. And this is known as simpatico. Latin Americans view their self-concepts to be more characterized by traits that reflect simpatico, such as easygoing, respectful, courteous, and agreeable. Latin Americans also expect interactions with others to be dominated by positive social behaviors and to have fewer negative social behaviors compared with the expectations of the European Americans. Latin Americans show a clear preference for working in groups in which people strive to maintain a warm and hospitable atmosphere. European Americans, especially Protestants, show a clear preference for staying focused on the task at hand. Latin Americans act in more sociable ways than European Americans, and time sampling studies find that they spend a greater proportion of their time socializing with others. Humans require such an extended period of costly protective care and socialization that they fare best when they have two parents devoted to providing resources and socializing them. In the ancestral environment, it was likely that parents who did not feel especially strong love for their children were less likely to have their children survive the tenuous circumstance of a subsistence lifestyle. Some strong incentives were needed to keep the parents together so they would both remain to support the children. According to the reasoning, romantic love was selected as the glue that keeps couples together. Those people who did not develop feelings of love for their partners would have been less likely to stay with them and would have ended up having fewer surviving offspring than those who felt strong feelings of love. One review of ethnographies of 166 cultures found clear evidence of romantic love in 89% of them. Historically, the majority of marriages around the world have been arranged by families rather than by couples themselves. How I Met Your Mother? I met her on our wedding day, of course. Looking at 186 societies, researchers found that Western strategies in finding an appropriate spouse was only seen among 31% of men and 8% of women. In a study by Levine and colleagues in 1995, college students from several countries were asked this question. If a man or woman had all the qualities you desired, would you marry this person if you were not in love with them? Half of the students from India and Pakistan said they would marry the person, and 1/4 more were undecided whether they would marry a person with all the qualities that they desired, except they didn't love them. Over 80% of Americans, Britons, Australians, and Latin Americans said they would not, and only a small percentage, less than 5% of these countries, said they would. In other words, in India and Pakistan, half the people are going to marry somebody who has all the attributes that they're looking for, even though they aren't in love with them. But in the United States, in England, in Australia, and in Latin America, they wouldn't. 80% would not marry somebody unless they were in love with them. This gets really interesting. The identical question was posed to American college students in 1967. 1967 is the year that I graduated from high school. 2 years later, I married my high school sweetheart. 65% of the men, but only 24% of the women said that they would not marry someone they did not love. And this is according to Kephart in 1967. Now, the reason I have this picture up here isn't because that's me. I was, when I married my wife, I was in college. But a lot of people were getting married because of the Vietnam War. A lot of men were going off to war, and they married their girlfriend or whatever. But I find it just fascinating that 1/4 of the women, only 1/4 of the women would marry somebody, whether they were looking or whether they were in love with them or not. Only 24% of the women were looking for love, had to have love in their marriage. And this is in 1967. So the probability is that the woman that I married in 1969 wasn't in love with me. But being a male, it's 2/3 of the men were looking for love in a marriage, and I thought I was in love with her. Okay. So I don't know if you find that fascinating or not, but this is all very telling for me because we got a divorce in 1974, I think. Is that right? Yeah, 74. The likelihood of a culture favoring arranged marriage is not determined randomly. It appears to be to relate to the dominant kind of family structure in the culture. And this is Donald Trump. This is not Melania. That is his second wife. His second wife was Marla Maples. That's Marla Maples with her new husband, Donald Trump. His first wife was Ivana Trump. And of course, they had a daughter named Ivanka. Good in 1959 proposed that this lady had a baby with him as well. She's the one daughter that you never see, that you rarely see. Good in 1959 proposed that romantic love would become more important in cultures as the strength of extended family ties became weaker. The powerful feelings of romantic love could be somewhat irrelevant or even problematic for marriages in cultures with strong extended family ties. And of course, that's what you were dealing with on the Navajo Nation. You're dealing with romantic situations that have strong extended family ties. And this is one of the reasons for your extensive clan system. The Western ideal of romantic love, characterized by intense feelings and mutual absorption, could be disruptive in cultures with large kin networks because such feelings can interfere with people's abilities to respect the wishes of their family members. So what's more important, your spouse or your extended family? And in a collectivistic situation, it is your extended family, and you certainly can't disrespect your extended family. An analysis of data from 117 non-industrialized societies found clear support for Good's hypothesis, and that's according to Lee and Stone in 1980. Marriages based on love were more likely in cultures with nuclear family structures than they were in cultures with extended families. Many arranged marriages start out with no feelings of love between the couple. However, in time, the husband and wife begin to develop strong feelings for one another. A good analogy is getting a pet and developing strong feelings for the animal the longer you have it. People in arranged marriages describe their experiences in a similar manner. The individual approaches a person as his or her new spouse with the expectation of eventually falling in love. With time, they usually do. With the abysmal failure rate of Western marriages, the assumption that arranged marriages are miserable is probably inaccurate. Most people in countries where arranged marriages are prevalent view arranged marriages as more likely to succeed than romantic marriages. A survey among adults living in various urban centers in India found that 74% of men and women believed that arranged marriages were more likely to succeed than love marriages, and this is according to Kishwar in 1994. There is also evidence that those in arranged marriages are at least as satisfied with their marriages as those in love marriages. Turkish couples in arranged marriages have been found to be as much in love with their partners as couples in love marriages, and this is according to Hortescue in 1999. Members of the Unification Church participated in mass arranged marriages where partners were chosen in ceremonies that involved thousands of men and women. Looking at marriages after 3 years, researchers found a similar rate of satisfaction between these couples and the general public, and that's according to Galanter in 1986. And this is a real depiction of a Unification Church marriage. They would just pair the people up as they came through the door. Of course, the women were wearing wedding gowns, and the men were wearing tuxedos. Men in Japanese arranged marriages were found to be more satisfied than those in love marriages. And this is according to a research by Blood in 1967. Men in Chinese arranged marriages were as satisfied as those in love marriages. More satisfied, and these guys were just as satisfied. That's according to Zhu and White in 1990. However, women in Japanese arranged marriages were found to be less satisfied in arranged than love marriages. And this is according to Blood and in 1967 as well. So the men were happier, but the women were not. They weren't nearly as satisfied. Women in Chinese arranged marriages were found to be less satisfied in their marriages than love marriages, and that's according to Zhu and White in 1990. This suggests that the costs of arranged marriages are borne largely by women in the Japanese and Chinese cultures. A study by Gupta and Singh in 1982 compared marital satisfaction between Indian couples in arranged and love marriages. In the initial years of marriage, those in love marriages professed more love than those in arranged marriages. Over time, it was those in arranged marriages who reported having the most love. This pattern held true for both men and women. The study was replicated with similar results by Kumar and Dayani in 1996 and Yelzma and Athapilli in 1988. While these results may seem counterintuitive, Heine explains them using an interview with a Japanese colleague who had been in an arranged marriage for 30 years. And this is actually a picture of Heine. I got another picture of him coming up. There he is. When they were first married, they had no love for each other. Now they have some love for each other. Some love seems like quite a bit compared to no love. Couples in love marriages typically start out with a lot of love for each other. Years later, it is not surprising that many of them report having less love than they did during their steamy courtship. Some love doesn't seem so great compared to the lot of love they had for each other earlier. There you go. A study in Israel comparing arranged and love marriages found similar results. Those in arranged marriages were found to be as much in love with their partners as couples in love marriages. And this is according to Shocker in 1991. And that should be it. That is it. Okay, sorry about the cat fight. I'll go see if there's any blood anywhere. So I'll talk to you guys next week.